Karthik, and I see up that you've just joined. No issues. We've started today on time. So these people are doing a writing activity, and time is supposed to end in another 4 5 minutes. You can start writing, but I'm sure you won't be able to complete. That's all right. We'll see if there is some space allowed at the end of the session because you're anyway going to come back to what you do.
Okay, ma'am.
So begin writing. Begin writing, and how much ever you complete, it's fine. Just keep these things with you. Everybody, please save your work. Don't just throw it away like that because you will need it again for other activities. Okay?
Yes.
Thank you.
Done, ma'am.
Okay, we'll go for another maybe till 6:25. And what link do you want me to share, Devraj? The PFF one, you share that.
Yes, sir, clear like
Yeah, I had already shared that. I think you did not join by then. Yeah, I'll share it again. You can use that. If you have it in writing elsewhere, you can maybe just paste it there. So, or anyway, you will have to keep a copy of it for yourself. Okay, another 4 minutes, and you can get back to the lesson part. We'll come back to your writing. So keep it safe. I'm also trying to see where I can save it. So we stop at 6:25 sharp, and we'll begin talking about some important aspects of writing that I'm supposed to do today. Those of you who have just joined, don't worry. At least keep um, take a look at the activity. These people have been writing for a while now, so you can keep this question with you, and we'll get back to this, but for a different task. However, if you're planning to participate, then you can write it maybe in that slot that is allotted. All right. Uh, you can stop writing now wherever you are. Right. we'll leave it at that and we'll get back to whatever you have written after we finish talking about what we want to do today. So, welcome back everyone to the session. I hope you have had good time writing. We're going to be discussing a few things that are going to be applicable to what you did in your writing activity. You will see several um, points, several tenets that will help you improve on what you have written just now. We've already looked at certain aspects and we've used that to do your task today, which mainly includes the basic components like the topic sentence, supporting sentences, and the concluding sentence. And also the essential concepts that's used to write down an effective paragraph, namely cohesion or coherence as it's called, and unity, right? So these are the elements and components around which you have done your writing today or you are expected to do it today. We are going to look at a few more that would help you enhance what you have written today, right? So for the mini lesson today, we include a bit of an understanding on silent strategies in writing, okay? And for this course, we are also going to use a demonstrative sample of descriptive paragraphs. There are different types of paragraphs, but I intend to use only the descriptive paragraph module here because too much of packing things into one thing is not going to help anybody. We'll put our focus right now on descriptive paragraph. However, a lot of things that you use for the descriptive paragraph can be used for the other kinds as well. Okay, so let's begin for today. Um, just a few note on language and style in writing. What do we mean by language or style in writing, right? So first and important foremost thing that you need to know about the use of language or language as such in writing is that in any form of writing, right, language is always context dependent. What does context dependent mean? Context dependent simply means that there's no rule, right? If you ask me what are the rules of using language in writing, I do not have anything to lay down, right? All I can give you are certain strategies that you can employ for certain kinds of writing. And the moment I say kinds of writing, what I'm uh, trying to say is precisely the context. Times in writing always refer to the context. Okay. So language in writing is context dependent. This is the first thing you should know. And how do you understand context? Context basically comprises of the intended purpose, the audience, and the situation that you're dealing with, right? Which means whatever your purpose and the purpose for writing, whoever right? And whatever your situation is, your language changes its um, form accordingly, right? For example, say somebody who writes children's literature, right? Someone who writes science fiction, someone who writes fantasies, right? The language that you see in a work like, say, Midnight's Children is not a children's literature, you should know that or say take some other example, somebody who writes something like say a Shiva trilogy, right? Uh, or somebody who writes something like a 5 Point Someone or a Night at the Call Center. I'm just giving you examples that comes at the top of my head. And somebody who writes something like say Harry Potter or Twilight series, the language is going to be quite different. Or somebody who writes here Da Vinci Code is going to use a very different language from somebody who writes an autobiography, right? This is self-explanatory. I do not have to say. So context is basically this. The audience is different, right? In children's literature, you will see that the language is very, very descriptive, right? It goes to a point where if you read as an adult, you find it a bit trite, right? Trite meaning, you get a little bored because there's too much explanation about everything, too much description. Now, who audience? The audience is children here, right? And children may not know, they do not have a lot of experience of the world, and this is how they're going to be introduced to many things. And introductive writing, which is also a style of writing in children's literature, is of course detailed in nature. This kind of detailing you may not find in an adult fiction, okay, a young adult fiction or anything, or the language that the young adult fiction is going to use is going to be quite different, right? Point being that your language use is going to be context dependent. Your language use is going to be dependent on the purpose you're writing, for the audience you're writing, for the situation that is based, right? So this is the first point you need to understand. Second thing is when you talk about language and writing, in terms of writing itself, in terms of the strategy that you use to write itself, with respect to the strategy you use, or with respect to the selection of what goes into your writing, language in writing is concerned with word choice. Okay, and word choice in turn analyzes two main things. One is wordiness, and second thing is relevance of the information presented. Wordiness and relevance are interconnected. There is an overlap between what wordiness and relevance means. I'll talk to you what wordiness means in a moment. Okay? But keep in mind, wordiness and relevance are the major part that is contained in uh, the concept of word choice, which is very important in uh, language that we use in writing. These things are directly connected to using language in writing. The second thing that is important is style. Okay. Now, like very much like your language, style is also context dependent, which means what style you adopt uh, to write your piece of work is again context dependent, which means it is also going to be dependent on your three things: purpose, audience, and situation. Your purpose, your audience, and your situation is going to almost dictate on what style you choose. When you talk about style in language, you are referring to what? You're referring to two things mainly. Okay, whether you're going to use a formal style of writing or whether you're going to use a informal style of writing, right? And it also includes tones, which includes the formal and informal tones, and some other tones like the ironic tone or emotional tone or intellectual tones. Remember, all of this is achieved again through what? Language, right? You see that sentence there. Language and its structure serve as the tool to build the preferred style, right? Style could be any, based on your purpose, audience, and situation, based on your context. You decide which style suits you better. Should I use a formal style? Should I use an informal style? Should I go for an ironic tone? Should I go for an emotional tone? Should I go for an intellectual tone? Okay, should I be using some other thing to address my audience or to talk to my audience? Talk here basically means write. Okay? The same thing. Okay. So whatever your choice is, again, the style or the usage of this is allowed and it is facilitated by the language, right? Because language is the medium that you're using to present it. Okay. So both are context dependent, and what you choose completely depends on how you interpret your audience and your situation and the purpose, right? The last again, about some strategies on language and style. Um, Short sentences, long sentences. Okay, this is particularly about the sentence length. Sometimes, along with the structure of language and the tones, you can also use sentence length in order to convey a certain style or a certain context or a certain idea to your audience, right? So sometimes you use just short sentences, sometimes use long sentences, sometimes use a combination of both, right? Short sentences is something that is a characteristic feature of formal writing, because informal writing, the space and time allowed to use very less. You're not allowed to, there's no copious amount of time or space allowed for you to go on describing or detailing out things. So generally the preference is to use short, crisp sentences which can convey the information clearly, right? However, if you're required to elaborate on something, you're required to add details, give nuances to what you're writing, then long sentences are used. In real scenario, in the real life scenario, what we usually see is both, right? You have both short and long sentences going hand in hand to form a paragraph, right? However, to give you just an idea on the strategy itself, your topic sentences and concluding sentences are usually short sentences with just one subject and a predicate. Okay? It is not expected of you to write long, winding sentences in paragraphs, especially for the topic sentence and the concluding sentence. However, the supporting sentences are expected to be lengthy because these are the ones which actually do what? They add, prove, elaborate, explain. So because all of this requires some kind of detailing, the general perception or the general observation is that the supporting sentences are a little bit longer than your topic sentence and concluding sentence. This also means there's another part that comes out of this. Your sentences cannot be, you know, too long also. Too long to the extent that they feel breathless. Okay, breathless here means something that packs in too much information in one day. Okay, even that is not allowed. However, you can keep it as lengthy as it serves your purpose. Okay, that's what it means. So this is just a quick note on language and silent writing. I wanted to read these three pieces that you see on the screen and comment on what differences do you see, or if at all you see any differences in the three set of write-ups that you see here. Okay, the first, second, and the third. Please go through and let me know what are the differences, if there's any. Just comment on what those differences could be. Please read it. Please let me know once you're done.
Yes, ma'am, completed.
Completed? Okay, just let's wait for another 1 minute so that others can catch up as well. Okay, I think everybody must have read by now. Okay. So, what do you want to talk about this? How do you think these are different from each other? Or let's begin by asking which one do you think is the best suitable one? Um, if, say, this was a mail that you were sending someone.
The middle one, ma'am.
First, second, or third.
Last
Second
one.
one.
Last
First
one.
one.
Last one, second one. Okay. Why the second one and why the last one? That is where
I'm
your
telling,
answer to the question is. Yes, yes, go on, go on.
ma'am, I'm just telling
Go
that the
on.
second one, the statement which is in the middle form, is the best statement suited for the requirement.
Why?
Because
Why?
uh, because ma'am, the person has already worked with the company, and he expressed himself that he is most eligible for the job which is required for the company, I think.
Hmm. Okay. And the one who said, Kel said which one?
Sorry,
It
ma'am.
was
Ma'am, I said
one.
last one.
You said the
Ma'am, I
last
said
one. And
last one
why would
because
you choose the last one?
it is too short and it is short and it is a right to explain.
It rightly explains everything. Okay.
Yes,
Anybody
ma'am.
else with any other answer?
No, I think the first one is better. And it is short,
Now
and
the quorum
the
is
candidate
complete,
has
right? We
a.
have all the three answers. Ha, ha. Okay, so I would like you to read these things, a little closely, right? See this one. I am applying for the computer assistant position advertised in the local paper. I'm an outstanding candidate for the job because of my significant technical experience, good language skills, and problem solving skills. Crisp, clear. Okay, there is nothing more that is added or nothing that is that kind as less. Okay. Look at the second one. I'm applying for the computer assistant position that is currently open in the company. Okay, all right. As you are aware, I have worked as a temporary employee with your company in this position before. How does this person know who he's writing to, and how do they know that this person has already worked, right? As such, I not only have experience and knowledge of this position, but also already understand the company's needs and requirements for this job. The statement is still fine. But the second one, this is problematic because consider this is a formal email that is sent to somebody who is at an HR position or somebody who's in charge of recruitment, right? So the main thing that you keep in mind while you're writing a formal, when you're writing in the formal setting, is that you do not bring in any information that is personal in nature. Or even if you want to point out to the person that you have worked in the company before, you are not allowed to use personal tones to writing, right? As you are aware, that is too much of assumption about somebody who's reading your email, right? I could be somebody who don't know. Maybe I'm a new person. I don't know you. I don't know any history about who you are or what it is, right? Given this is a formal email, these kind of personal remarks are not allowed. Okay, so in that second one is different from the first one. Okay, one way in which it is different is that the second one adds a little bit of a formal note. Okay, let's look at the third one also to understand how they differ from each other. Hi, I read in the paper that you all were looking for a computer assistant. I think that I am good fit for the job because I've done stuff like it in the past. I'm good with words and I'm incredibly skilled in solving problems. This one has a lot of problems. Okay, beginning with the very informal method of saying hi. Okay, you're writing to somebody who you don't know, and hi is not you start an email in the formal setting, right? I read in the paper that y'all. Okay, this is what? This is conversational language. You don't use that while you write. Okay. Uh, as such, contractions are not allowed, right? Contractive forms like in the second line again you have I apostrophe V. This is also something that is not permitted in written language or the formal writing. So that is one thing, and particularly with the y'all contraction that's used, it's more of a slang, right? It's not even an informal language; it is also a slang. So no slangs allowed, no contractions allowed in formal writing. Right? I'm just trying to draw attention to what we understand by formal and informal style in writing. Okay. Another part, I think that I am good fit for that job because again, informal language. Okay. You need to explain why you are a good fit. Like look at the first one. I am an outstanding candidate for the job because of my significant technical experience, good language skills, and problem solving skills. When you're making a claim, you should be able to explain why you're saying so. Not I'm a good fit for that job because I have done stuff like it in the past. What stuff? Okay, again, informal language, stuff like it, you're not explaining what stuff are mentioning. So, vague language, this is the third or the fourth point. Good with words. What's the problem here? Wrong structure. You don't write, I'm good with words. I'm incredibly skilled, right? Wrong structure of language, incredibly skilled. That is for others to decide. You can't call yourself incredibly skilled. So, there is also a punch of over expression in your writing. So the third one is problematic in many ways. It is extremely informal, uses slangs, uses wrong structures, uses overshooting explanation of the self skills, has contracted usage, which is informal usage of language, vague language, stuff like this, right? So the difference between all the three is the first one is the most formal, if you on a scale of formal. The first one is the most formal one and the most apt one for the formal setting. The second one is has got a bit of a personal tone which can be avoided, and with that corrected, you can say this is something that can be considered as a semi-formal writing. And the last one is more than informal. It is something that is not suitable for a formal space at all. The first being most formal and the last being least formal. Get this difference? Any questions you have at this point or any disagreements or concerns?
No,
Yes,
ma'am.
no, maybe. Okay, all right. So from that point of view, this is a check on how you write a formal, or how does a formal or an informal writing looks. Okay. Uh, I wanted you to see that before we discuss what formal and informal style is. So this slide is then self-explanatory to you since you have already seen that examples, right? So what happens in formal style? It is less personal. It is usually used for professional or academic purposes. Has an objective role. Okay, objective basically means uh, something that is impersonal. Oh, I'm sorry. The other part should be personal, not impersonal. Objective is basically impersonal. Okay, uses an objective or impersonal. Okay, was this clear from the three mails that you read already? Yes or no?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Less personal, used for professional or academic purposes, uses an objective or impersonal tone, right? You saw this in the first one, that the first one had all the three qualities that you see in the first column here under formal style. Informal style, on the other hand, it's more casual, it's spontaneous, it is usually used to write to friends and relatives, uses a personal tone, okay, not impersonal, this echo there, uses personal tone. Okay. This was also visible from the second and the third one that you saw. Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Third
Yes,
form
ma'am.
Yes,
of,
ma'am.
sorry, second and the third email that you saw. Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, what are the factors that make the language informal in the third one, or maybe even say in the second one? What is it? The first one, group jargons. What are group jargons? Group jargons are those specialized term or specialized language that is used only in a group. Okay, which means if you use them in writing, then your writing becomes inaccessible or vague to the person who's reading because that person is not a part of the group which uses that language, right? So group jargons are one kind of elements or one kind of segments that make your language informal. Second things include slangs, like the one we saw in the last email, y'all. Okay? Idiomatic expressions, the idiomatic expressions that are a part of your language and you have loosely translated them into, say, English or your other target language. Okay? Those kind of expressions, idiomatic expressions, slangs, colloquialism, right? Colloquialism. These all add to uh, making your language informal. There are a few examples that follow that. ASAP, you all. And this Macha and Sema and Akka and Anna, these are actually meant for, if you are a Tamil person, you will understand what those terms mean. Okay, these are Tamil colloquial terms. Some of them are also slangs that people use. If you're going to include words like this in your writing, especially formal writing, it's going to be a difficult thing for somebody to access your language, right? So, slangs, idiomatic expression, colloquialism need to be completely stayed away from in formal writing. Third part is stereotypical and biased language. Look at those examples. There are many things that you can talk about when you talk about bias and stereotypes in language. I have included the easy category to understand, which is gender. Okay, look at this: mankind, manpower, chairman, man-made. Okay. Now, the problem with the usage of words like this is that there is nothing that is intrinsically male about anything that we are talking here. Nothing is intrinsically male about being chairman. There's nothing intrinsically male about man-made. Nothing intrinsically male about manpower, or nothing intrinsically male about mankind. Right. So, although that is the case, the words do not seem to be inclusive of a different category which forms at least 50% of the rest of the human beings, right? So instead of using something like mankind, you can simply write human beings, okay? Or the humankind, even that goes, right? Manpower can be changed to, what can you change manpower to? You can simply say human source, right? That is also something how you can use it, right? Chairman, you can simply say the chair or you can simply say the head or the coordinator. That also works instead of bringing in a gender approach to writing, because chair and coordinator is a more neutral and a more apt thing to write than saying chairman, right?
Ma'am, we
Man-made,
can also use chairperson.
you can also say chairperson, or even, that big, yeah, chairperson is correct. You can simply even write chair of the meeting, okay, the chair of the committee. That itself is also enough. Yeah. Point is that you don't try and color anything is not naturally a part of it, right? So this is just one example of bias. Then the bias based on race, religion, ethnography, right? A lot of biases do creep in writing and in speech while somebody does these two. And if you want to write effectively, it is important that you also learn to stay away from biases, any form of biases, whether that's of a gender, whether that's of categories could be many actually, race or religion or ethnicity, nationality, anything. Whatever amounts to any form of bias in language needs to be put aside. Another category with respect to structure of the language and informality is usage of phrasal verbs. Right? We've already, I think, if you have followed the lectures, we have discussed in the lecture on phrasal verb that phrasal verbs are more common in spoken language. Right? So spoken language, because there are instances, mostly a lot of instances of informality while you speak with someone, or in conversations, people don't tend to keep it extremely formal also. Phrasal verbs are necessarily a part of spoken or conversational English, so we do not bring them in writing altogether. First person pronouns, of course, in formal writing, if you're required, if you're seeing something is in such a way that you have to present it to talk about yourself, then of course you will have to use. Wherever it is extremely important, of course you have to use it, right? That does not mean you keep away from it always. But if you're writing about something in general, then the narrative used is always in third person, should keep away from the first person pronouns. And the last part is contraction, like the one we saw here, right? I have, I apostrophe VE or U apostrophe RE, your. These kind of contractions in the language structure is also something that would make your language informed, right? So we have grammatic and grammatical factors that can make your language informal. And this is something that we've seen in those examples that we discussed. Okay. Now, what is wordiness? A wordiness refers to writing 10 words where 5 words would do. Remember, when we're talking about language and style, talked about language concerns itself, language in writing concerns itself with word choice, and two important aspects that the word choice analyzes is this wordiness, and the second part is uh, cliches and vague expressions. What is wordiness? Wordiness refers to writing more than what is required. Okay, and more than that, it means if you could have wrapped up something in 5 words, instead of the 5 words, if you use 10 words, then it's called a wordy sentence or a wordy writing, right? Basically, I've written 5 words more than what you should have used. Okay? This is called wordiness. Now, it is not simply, a concept on the number of words you've used or the length of the sentence that you've used. It has other meanings. It has other intended meanings also. And what are those? Okay, if your writing is wordy, it can send out a signal that you have no respect for your reader's time. Okay. It can also hide the meaning that you wanted, because if you have written so much that your actual meaning has got lost in all these words. And the third thing is that you lack substance, right? Things that a wordy writing can generate when a reader looks at it. Okay. So in that sense, wordiness and a check on wordiness is very, very important in writing. Next part is cliches or ornate expressions. What are cliches and ornate expressions? They are thought to make your writing impressive. However, they have the exact opposite effect while you write them down. Okay. Some people would to use a certain of these things in your writing so that your writing looks a little more enriched. But keep in mind, if they are used unnecessarily, if they are used in such a way that they're uncalled for, then instead of making it better, it's going to ruin the entire spirit and tone of your writing. Right? So stay away from cliches and ornate expressions. Can you give me examples of few cliches and ornate expressions? Anybody? Can you think of a few? I'll give you one. Last but not the least. Okay, the number of times we have heard this expression everywhere, it has become it has become so common and so overused that it doesn't sound impressive anymore, right? It's not an impressive usage anymore when somebody says last but not
Madam,
least.
ma'am, is it thank you?
Sorry,
Is it thank you?
thank you. What is thank you?
Uh,
Ravish, I didn't follow your question.
no, no. Okay, no problem.
Ma'am, vice versa is
Uh,
Eclipses.
Bias?
Versa.
No, sorry, you weren't clear.
Vice versa.
Vice versa. Ah, okay, yes, yes. Okay, you were giving me examples of cliches. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, that is another example of cliche, right? It's so overused that now they don't sound it doesn't sound impressive anymore. It doesn't sound like a good thing to write anywhere, right? That's the meaning of when you call something cliche, it basically means that this is boring because of overuse. Okay, something has become extremely boring or unimpressive because of its overuse over a period of time, right? Ornate expressions basically means archaic expression, something which is like a really old thing and, is not true anymore, is something that is referred to as ornate expressions or something that uses more than what is required. Both of them have the same effect, okay? You can say both are more or less the same, cliches and ornate expressions, okay? Ornate expression also means, this overly flowery expressions, right? Too much of flowered expressions, too much of inaccessible description and details. That's what is called ornate. Even that can create confusions for reader. Nobody enjoys reading about it. So this is um, on cliches and ornate expressions. In formal writing, particularly, it's definitely not allowed. Okay, some of it may be informal or the other kinds of writing, say creative fiction or other things, but formal writing strictly stays away from this. Okay, uh, vague language. Okay, vague language. Remember that stuff like that expression in the last email. I am good at this and stuff like that. Okay. This is an example of vague language. You might have heard people using the expression etc., right? Or so on and so forth, okay, or so on, or sort of, right? Uh, pens like that. Okay, things like that. These are all expressions that are considered vague. And in writing, particularly, vague language is not something that is allowed at all. In speaking, yes, people do use this more in speaking, and it is allowed to a certain extent in speaking too. However, in written language, this is completely something that is not expected or is not recommended, right? What do? They can make your language less factual and indirect, which is something that is not recommended in writing, especially in formal writing. And you use them usually when you do not know the name of something or to talk about groups or category, which shouldn't be the case while you're writing, because writing, what is document something actually which is a result of several drafts and revision. So it cannot be the case that you don't know about something. If you do not know, you read and then you write down the clear things instead of using vague language. Okay. Another implication of using vague language, especially in the formal settings, is also that you are rude and impolite. Right? Your writing or your speech sounds extremely impolite and rude if you have a tendency to use vague language. Right? So that is another implication of this. Okay, so do you understand all these three things about what formal and informal means, which
Yes,
becomes
ma'am.
informal?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
okay, right. We now look at the aspect of descriptive writing, okay, which is also the demonic sample that I intend to show you today in the class. We are going to look at three things in descriptive writing, exactly like we have begun this class on, right? We talked about language and style and the content aspect. So we're going to exactly look at that part in descriptive writing now. Okay. Same thing that we've been discussing till now and how it is going to be applicable in a certain type of writing, which is descriptive writing. Okay, let's look at that. So in terms of its content, okay, if you talk about the content of a descriptive writing, It talks about either an object, a person, or a place as it appeals to our senses, like what we can see, smell, taste, touch, and feel. This is very important, right? Because while you're describing a person, object, or place, most of your description is going to be taken up, or it will include the way it appeals to your senses, all your five senses, right? These are all points for you to build on your writing. So you're going to write about what you've seen, what you smelled, what you tasted, what you touched, or what you felt. All of it is not applicable always, but some of it is at least applicable in all the cases, right? The idea of a descriptive writing is to create a picturesque experience, or say simply experience. So this is also referred to as experiential writing, okay? Which means while you write in description something, the reader feels or experiences the writing along with the author, right? So descriptive writing is sometimes also referred to as experiential writing. It helps you, helps the reader to build an experience along with the author, right? So in terms of content, that is what you do in descriptive writing. Language and the word choice. Word choice is of course specific to the topic. What words or phrases you choose is definitely dependent on what topic you are going to write about, right? But what is important here to note is that in descriptive writing, you will see a use of lot of modifiers. Okay, and what do we mean by modifiers? There would be usage of adverbs and adjectives in abundance. You will see a lot of usage of adjectives and adverbs in the language of descriptive writing. Okay, because you know the name, as the name suggests, you're describing, so obviously you will require a lot of modifiers to talk about. Style again is something that is dependent on the target audience quickly. Okay, this is roughly how your descriptive organization's framework will look. You'll have the ideas, okay, whatever you want to write about, smell, taste, touch, feel, who, where, what, and how, all of those things. The ideas you're going to generate that from. You're going to come out with the outline, which will essentially be your different parts of the topic sentence, supporting details, and the concluding sentence, and what goes within it. And the third thing, third important part is the of the vocabulary. Okay? These three things are essential while you are describing. The descriptive organization of a paragraph shall include all these three things. Okay, whether it is on people, place, or place. Outline. What does the outline consist of? The topic sentence. What do you write in a topic sentence? You introduce the object, place, or person. Okay, this is all with respect to descriptive writing. You introduce it and you also express the feeling or your opinion about the object or the place or the person in question. So point together, topic and the main idea gives you a topic sentence. Discuss this in the first class. Supporting sentences will include background information, descriptive details, more details. Okay, so this is the area where you're going to shove up a lot of adjectives, adverbs, all kind of detailing that's required for the topic table. Concluding sentence, we simply restate the topic sentence. Okay. Developing ideas includes using modifiers. We already discussed that you can use adjectives and adverbs. Now, what do you keep in mind while you describe people? Okay. First thing, what does he or she look like? Which means describing people, the first point is obviously going to be the appearance, right? And while you uh, add the appearance, you can either talk about the somebody's appearance, or you can talk about the parts too, right? Which means you can talk about overall appearance, like you can say good looking, attractive, etc. The adjectives that you use, or you can even talk about individual parts of the person's physical appearance, right? Like look at this one, physical appearance. You can either talk about the build of the person. You can build. Can you give me a few words for build? No? Okay, say, look at an example like sinewy. What does sinewy build mean? Have you heard about this before?
No, ma'am.
No. What is sinewy? Sinewy is somebody who's well built, who has a well built torso, but down the torso, you know, the person looks very lean and gaunt. right? Some people have appearance like that. Now they're broad-chested and everything. Their torso is broad-chested, everything. But if you look from below their waist, they look very lean and gaunt. Right? So similarly, there are different words that you can use to describe someone's build, right? Square build. Okay, a lot of words actually, plenty of adjectives and modifiers in that area. So point is, you can talk about somebody's build when you're talking about physical experience. You can talk about someone's height, right? You can talk about his hair, right? Wavy, curly, straight, blonde, right? A lot of adjectives also come up in that area. Other features like eye, face, nose, skin, hands, mouth, lips, all of them can be used, right? Let's see if we can. Sure, if I have a ready thing with me. Let me see if I have one. Not here. Here. I don't think I have that ready with me, but oh, okay. I can actually show you a list of words. Okay, I'll do one thing. I'll show you that at the end of the presentation. It should be- Okay, anyways, anything that you can think about? Misty, oval, right? Sharp, right? These are all things that you can use for eye. Face, long face, short face, right? Brighty face, or could be something with freckles, right? Ruddy. These are all adjectives that you can use to describe face. Similarly, you can do these things for hands, skin, nose, mouth, or lips. Of course, it's dependent on what exactly you are writing on or how much you intend to write. Okay? Uh, so adding details to this part will include this, and this can of course be written as reasons or a story or anything, right? Second thing, first part is describe person's look, that's physical appearance. Second thing, while describing a person, you could do the following. What do you like about them? So you're going to use positive adjectives, right? What do you not like about them? Negative adjectives. Okay. One important part while you're using negative adjectives, all negative, you're not expected to, this is especially in formal writing. Okay, creative writing, of course, there is no bar, or people end up writing a lot of things there. But in case you're in a conversation, so you're writing down somebody in a formal setting, then using these adjectives in a little indirect fashion would help because it helps you soften your language. Okay, instead of sounding a bit rude or impolite by using negative adjectives straight, you can sort of soften them instead of being very straight about it, right? Like, for example, the word for, say, somebody is very fat. So instead of saying very fat, the word you use is obese, right? So there are a few adjectives that exist exist as neutral adjectives, especially to soften down the effect of a negative adjective. So that you can do. The second part includes writing about what the person is like, which will include both positive and negative adjectives in the details. Okay. Please note, the modifiers could also be clauses than just words. Okay, so your adjectives or adverbs that appear in the sentence while you write down needn't be always words or phrases, right? They can be full long sentences also. I'll show an example of how adjectival and adverb is sentence. But for the time being, just keep in mind they're merely words or phrases. They can also be clauses. Clauses are uh, something that includes the subject and the verb on its own, of its own. Okay, I'll show you. I'll show you an example of what we mean by modifiers that are clauses. Adjective order. When you're using adjective order, what does adjective order mean? If you have more than one adjective, okay, then writing those adjectives have a particular order, right? So an opinion adjective precedes a which in turn precedes physical quality, which in turn precedes shape, age, origin, material type, and purpose. Right? Just to give you an example, if I have three adjectives, say beautiful, big, and uh, beautiful, big, and round. Okay, how are you going to arrange this? And say my noun is pot. If I have to follow this adjective order, how will I write it? beautiful, big, and round. Can I say round, beautiful, big pot?
Mem-
Yeah.
Loud, big, beautiful.
Can I say that? Is that the right order of saying it? Round, big, beautiful pot. Okay, the right
No,
way
ma'am.
of putting it,
Big,
no,
beautiful, and round.
not even that. Beautiful, big, round
Baba.
pot. Okay, what is beautiful? Beautiful is opinion, right? So opinion precedes in the adjective order, the first thing. Beautiful, big, big is size, and round is shape, right? So if you follow the order correctly, it has to be beautiful, big, round pot. A beautiful, big, round pot. Okay. So this order of putting up the adjective is very important also. Okay. Uh, if you are using more than one adjective to define something, and if they fall into different categories like this, then the order of them become important. Okay. Uh, all right. You can add few more information about all of this, like how do you know the person? Talk about your relationship. Where did you meet? How long have you known? These are all additional things. You know, if you feel like you need to add more things to it, then these are some of the questions that you may ask. Okay, this is while describing a person. Next thing is same thing, just like the person. The first thing you're going to talk about is how does it look, right? So the appearance in terms of size, shape, color of the object that is in question is first talked about. And because it is a thing, the next thing that you can focus on is the function. What is it used for? And while you write this down, you can also add details about material, weight, texture, price, cost, etc. Okay. Uh, Last thing is on describing places. Same thing. So the first question is same for all the three while you're describing things or things. The first question is what, how do they look like or how does it appear, right? Same applies for places. So space and settings. So when you talk about appearance of a place, the first thing you talk about is space and settings, size, shape, environment. Okay. Next thing you can talk about a place with time. Okay. Year, month, season. What time of year, month, or season is it? You can also talk about people and things in that places, right? And for that, you can use the cues that we have already learned in the first two part of describing people and things. Figurative language, right? Figurative language is allowed for even the other two, right? Which includes personification, metaphors, similes, etc. All of this to enrich and make your writing a little bit attractive and also uh, to build the reader centricity of your writing, okay, to make it more appealing to the reader. Second thing about describing places, you can talk about how you, okay, and then add further details. Let me quickly show you something here. I'm just going to move out of this part for a minute before we come to the example. I just wanted to show you a list of expressions that you can use as adjectives. Let's see if that is accessible. So something like this is allowed. This is there. You can find this online. Can you see the screen? Descriptive words. This is a list of certain words that you can use, which can come handy for you. You can refer back to them. If you develop these things by reading, well and good. But if you're a beginner and trying to write, then this, you know, for some time this will be handy for you. So especially to understand descriptive words related to feelings and senses. Okay, so condition, ability, anger. These are all feelings, right? Anger, depression, distress, fear, inadequacy, joy and elation, love, affection, concern, quantity, sight, size, smell, sound, time, touch. Okay, these are all very basic adjectival expressions that we can figure in descriptive work. I'll try to share this file as well when the materials for this is uploaded. You can have them, I mean, it's found, you can find this anywhere on the internet. It's not like I have to share it, but since I wanted to keep it as a package, you can use it. But don't be too dependent on list-based learning. It is helpful only to some extent, but it is a bit taxing on your memory, right? So don't be too dependent on this. Use it very, very sparingly and judiciously. Don't be over dependent on it because it does not help you build the skill. But to begin with, maybe you can, use it. That's all. So that is that. And now coming back to our a slide, just one more on that to show you an example of how this works. The last slide in here. Read this example. I have highlighted a few things in the um, colored fonts for you to understand how description has worked. Please read through this. Okay. Can you tell me, what kind of descriptions these are? The ones in blue, in the late summer of that year and early.
The pink,
Sorry?
the pink one are descriptive words,
No, you're not audible. Can you?
and the pink words are descriptive one.
All of them are descriptive. Okay, if you look at them, they all add and they are modifiers in some sense or the other. But what about the blue ones in the late summer of that year and early?
Time,
This
ma'am.
give you a sense of time, right? Yeah,
It
time.
is
Yes,
describing
correct.
time.
So
Yes.
they are descriptions on time, right? Mostly. How about those green ones? They're not immediately your classic modifiers of adjectives and all those things, but they also do the purpose of padding details. The bed of the river in the channels along the road. Some kind of spot or place or something, right? Huh. Uh,
Yes.
how about the pink ones that looked across
Physical
the
quality.
river? Yes, so they're all adjectives. They are proper adjectives. Look at the dry and white, okay, clear, swiftly moving, and blue, dusty. An example of modifier, which is a clause, is right in the beginning. That looked across the river and the plain to the mountains. Okay, we lived in a house in a village that looked. So, what is it qualifying? It's qualifying the house that looked across the river and the plain to the mountains. This is an example of an adjectival clause. Okay, describing a noun. So, unlike say um, uh, dusty leaves or dry and white boulders and pebbles, which is a direct case of adjective, which is used in words or phrase, that looked across the river and the plain to the mountains is an example of an adjective clause, right? Which modifies the noun. So the point being, sometimes your modifiers are also, they also appear clauses instead of simply one word or a group of words like a phrase. Okay? That's the point for me. All right. So you see, all in all, how the description process works, right? There is description of how somebody feels. There's description of how the things around. Like, say, there's a description on pebbles, boulders, trunks of the trees. Okay, the soldiers marching, everything. Right. So people, place, or thing can be described, and different words are used for that. Okay. In addition, there are details on the positioning of something, the place where it is found, the time, right? All of this form a part of the descriptive writing, which is why this is also like the basic form of writing. Anybody who begins writing first finds themselves writing about something, because that's the easiest thing to do. Okay, there's one more example that you want to see. This is just for you to tell me what descriptions you can take out from here. It's a short one, just about 2 or 3 sentences. Can you read and tell me what sort of descriptions you see here? Very iconic part from Fitzgerald's Great Gatsby. If you watch the movie starring Leonardo DiCaprio, this is a very iconic scene from that movie too. Yes, anyone want to try quick?
Ma'am, it's a description of time, color.
Can you give me examples and then talk about it so that it is easy for me
Ma'am,
to
description
understand?
of time is 2 o'clock, an
Okay,
hour
it
later,
mentions 2 o'clock. For 2 o'clock, a greenhouse arrives from Gatsby. Okay, then more fires.
an
And
hour
the
later,
front door opened nervously.
Front door opened nervously. What is this an example of? This is figurative language, right? Front
Yes,
door
yes.
opens nervously. This is all
And
personification.
and the
Okay, uh, using human attributes to things that are not human. So front door opens nervously. Figurative use of language. Yes. Good.
and then Gatsby in a white flannel suit, silver shirt, and gold
Flannel
colored
suit,
tie, hurried
silver
in,
shirt, gold colored tie. Correct.
talking
Then
about
the
the
next line
appearance.
again. Then rest of this is his appearance was pale, dark signs of sleeplessness beneath his eyes. Okay. So this form of description mostly found in your creative fiction and other forms of writing, but it doesn't mean that this is the only space you'll find it. Fiction will have uh, too much of description, in fact, but description is an essential feature of any form of writing, not just fiction, right? The nature varies a little bit in the sense that in fiction, since it is more than important from any time that you build an experiential world for the reader. Uh, Fictional writers go a little overboard with their description. Okay? But keep in mind that description is an essential aspect of writing in any form of writing. Formal writing, informal writing, fictional writing, scientific writing, technical writing, research writing, whatever the form of writing you are dealing with, description and knowing how to describe and what has to go into the descriptive aspect of anything is very, very important. Okay? Whatever your area of writing is. Okay, understood this part?
yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any questions that you have? I'm going to stop the presentation for today. We are done with the class. Uh, any questions you have?
Ma'am, I just want to take the screenshot of previous slides regarding description. So, can you please show me those
Which
slides
one? Oh,
regarding
you
description?
will. You don't have to take it. Okay, I can share it. But anyway, this material will be shared with you. But it's okay. I can let you do that also. That will be a couple of slides. Just go ahead. Tell me once you're done with each of it.
Okay, ma'am.
Meanwhile,
Ma'am,
people,
that's
those of you who have any question you can ask.
Okay, ma'am. Then yes.
Somebody raise their hand or no?
Okay, ma'am. I'm taking this. Okay, thank you, ma'am.
That's all. Okay, if there are no more questions, then that would be okay for today. So, just to tell you, if you have some time, you can work on this part that was supposed to be your question for the latter part of the um, class today, which is, whatever you have written today, please save that work. And you think about an additional five adjectives that you can use in the description that you have done on the memorable trip or what is the other one? Yeah, uh, valuable possession, right? So think about, five more adjectives that you can use, right? And try to build on what you have already. Okay. That would be a good exercise for you to work on what we have learned about description today. Just five more adjectives. Okay, just five adjectives you can think about for your write-up that you have with you today. Make a list of it and try to use them in the work that you have already written. Okay. If it requires rewriting, you can also do that, but please make use of all those five adjectives. Okay, and keep that ready. And we begin the class tomorrow. We'll look at the one that you wrote first and the one that you have written after writing these five, after having incorporated these five adjectives. Okay, is that fine?
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, I have a small doubt. Ma'am, classes are overlapping, ma'am.
Classes are overlapping. Yeah, I'm ending the session. No problem.
No, ma'am. There is another session of mine at 6 to 8. I can't join the session because of this.
Oh,
Because the
okay.
recording of this English was not found in. That's why I
Okay.
joined this session.
This is something that is we are a little we are a little helpless with regards to this since there are multiple things and this is only a one time. No? So we just find slots. Whatever slots we find, no, it is inconvenient for one person or the other. So this is a little tough for us to decide on that. However, nothing pressing. You are free to join whichever ones you think you want to. But sorry about the timings. There's hardly anything that we are able to do with respect to that. Like you will see today, when the session was on Saturday and Sunday, you had a bigger crowd, but now it's a thin crowd, right? So we understand people are occupied with things. We'll make the recordings available. If it is extremely difficult for you, you can make use of it and prioritize. So, no hard feelings from our side. We understand that there are problems when it's done online. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank.
Uh, yeah. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. I hope this was helpful for you. We'll meet again uh, on basic writing skills in English for one last time tomorrow. We're talking about editing and proofreading your work. Okay? Please keep these write-ups ready with you so that you have something to work on for editing as well as looking at the samples for what we discussed today. Thank you, everyone, and wish you a good evening for the rest of the time.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, everyone.